questions. Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Walter?
Thank you, ma'am. As a single council member, I personally don't care what Missoula or Montana says about this, because I don't think it's pertinent to us. As a citizen of Moscow, a council member for the city of Moscow, I'm concerned about how it affects Moscow. I presume that was it Dan that recognized that we were missing some pages of Chief Duke's memo, might explain to me why I couldn't find a summary comment in there that really said anything. I do notice he took a full page to write about concerns about protesters and intervention and disrupted methodologies. Maybe when I get the rest of it, I'll find something a little more summary. Fire Chief Ed Button, in the memo given to us tonight, said, "It is my evaluation that the presence of a megaload transport passing through the city of Moscow would have minimal impact upon the ability of the Moscow Volunteer Fire Department and Ambulance Company to respond in an emergency." City Attorney Randy Fife, in a two-page memo dated May the 3rd, I'm taking from parts of it, said, quote, "So while the city does have authority to regulate movement of traffic within its city, that authority does not extend to the state permitting process for use of its highways by oversized loads." In another paragraph, he says, "These limited general police powers related to health, safety, and welfare are available to the city. However, the simple presence of a megaload as it moves through the city on state highways is not illegal, parentheses, unless perhaps if it violates the condition of the permit allowing it to pass through the city limits," unquote. Our Streets Department Supervisor, Tyler Palmer, in a May 5 memo to us, or to the city supervisor that was given to us tonight, concluded, quote, "I am comfortable that our concerns are being addressed. I do not feel that the city of Moscow will have infrastructure-related problems or traffic pedestrian safety issues as a result of the oversized loads passing through the city on US 95. I understand, Mayor, that you have asked the Sustainable Environment Committee to look at this. I presume from a Curl Oil Sands perspective, I'm probably a little less concerned about that than I am about what Montana does. And for those reasons, and because I was the one that brought up a couple of meetings ago that I'm interested in what the police chief, fire chief, et cetera, have to say about this whole thing, because I consider them the experts on what happens in this part of activities in the city of Moscow, I would make a motion
We're not
that
acting on
it be
this.
resolved.
Walter, this is
that
not
the
on
city,
the agenda
Moscow
tonight.
City
You're out of
Council,
order, Walter. This is not acceptable tonight. There is no action before this council. We had a report and discussion.
I don't believe you're correct, Madam Mayor. I'd ask the city attorney to speak to that.
I'm declining to recognize such a motion. So I do want to follow up
Mayor,
on your comment about the Idaho
Madam Mayor,
Transportation Department's
I do not think
authority.
That's permissible to keep me from making a motion on an action item.
Well, I made a conscious decision to not put forward a proposal for the council's consideration tonight to give you some time to review some of the documents. But I did want to...
It is an action item with an action proposed.
I did want to accept the report is what the action is.
And I would make that motion.
So to follow up on the ITD authority, in fact, that the Idaho Transportation Department does have authority in this case, Walter, so I'm not disputing that the city does not have the authority to control what goes on the state's highways.
Madam Mayor, with all respect, I'm not interested in a discussion with you about this.
We do have the capacity to give the Idaho Transportation Department the tools it needs to make a reasoned decision based on the criteria set forward in the permitting process. And then you're correct, I did ask I spoke with City Council President Wayne Krause about having Sustainable Environment Commission have a conversation regarding this. We had invited input regarding environmental concerns. I did specify to relate that to local matters. I think as we have adopted the greenhouse gas emissions target setting. We've adopted a voluntary plastic bag resolution. We have a number of we saw our green building program tonight and some various things like that. And I think our Sustainable Environment Commission can relate this to environmental factors that pertain to the city proper. I'm not suggesting that the council takes a position on Alberta, Canada. But I do think that we have a responsibility as representatives of the citizens of Moscow to hear their concerns, and all of their concerns, including those people with whom some of us may not agree, who spoke at that meeting. So we happily accept the report, Gary. Thank you very much.
You accept the report. You do not have a motion from the council, Madam Mayor. And again, with all due respect, I don't want to get in an argument with you here. I think I have the right. I talked to the city attorney today, and it was indicated to me that I have the ability under an item on the agenda tonight to make a motion. And I do not believe you have the ability or the right to tell me I can't do it. Now, if I cannot get a second, if it fails, then so be it.
Please, Walter, carry on.
Madam Mayor, I would make a motion that we accept Supervisor Reedner's report, and that we resolve that the Moscow City Council has heard from the public, from local and state law enforcement, the Idaho Transportation Department, the Moscow Public Works, and local fire officials, and does not believe that the movement of the proposed megaloads through the city of Moscow will have any inordinate impact on our infrastructure or community. Furthermore, we invite and encourage ExxonMobil and their hauler to utilize Moscow as their stopover for motels and the purchases of food, fuel, and other supplies when they halt loads at the Latah-Benoit County line.
Wayne?
Before any discussion is put forward as to whether there's going to be a second, I'd like to hear from city staff as to whether Walter is correct, and I believe he is, that he can put forward a motion. And then I would also like to continue to invite council discussion.
Well, if there's a second, we'll get some council discussion on it. The city supervisor advised me this afternoon that this was not in keeping with what was on the agenda because I asked about putting forward my draft resolution, and it was recommended that I not do so because it was not on tonight's agenda. Is that accurate, Gary?
That is accurate.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I'm delighted that Walter has put into so many words because, in fact, I just wanted the council to take a public position on this. I can appreciate that their position, the majority, may be different from mine, and I wanted to give them the courtesy of enough time to review such a draft resolution so that they could consider it and also receive that written input from members of the public who were invited to provide more lengthy comments at our public meeting on May 11th, and that information has not even been tabulated yet. So Walter is talking about having heard from the public. In fact, our council president was not able to attend that meeting, and we don't even have the minutes from that meeting yet. So I would suggest that his supposition that everybody is equally informed is inaccurate. We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Well, I haven't had the answer to my question yet. Is Walter in order to put a motion forward?
I think that's probably my place to say it, but Gary?
Well, according to, as you know, the council's adopted the Roberts Rules of Order in substance, and Roberts Rules indicates that after the presentation of a report of an officer, a board, or a committee, one or more motions carry out recommendations contained in the report may be introduced. The motion may also grow out of the presentation of a written communication to the Assembly. As you indicated, ma'am, this afternoon when you asked the question, no resolution had been placed in the packet and was not intended to. I have no control over the council. If the council wants to make a motion, it's in accord with Robert's Rules, or it's allowed under Robert's Rules, then certainly it's up to the body.
Okay, then I would ask that a copy of my draft resolution also be put into the packet for the record, and that it be considered by the council tonight. And if we'd like to take a recess, we'll make copies of this, we'll distribute it, and we'll have further discussion. Randy?
Your Honor, I'd comment, I believe there's a motion on the floor,
That's right.
and it's my understanding that Robert's rules don't allow another motion to be presented, so I guess I'm a little confused
Well-
about what is happening right now.
Okay, Walter just submitted a document across the dais that was not in our packets this
No,
evening.
ma'am, it's a copy of my motion. It is the wording of my motion, that's all it is.
And it was, "We, the council, resolve," which is a resolution in my way of thinking. And so it seems reasonable that if we have, be it resolved. And so that is a draft resolution. Gary?
The city attorney may have a further comment first.
But no, I just, the way I understand the rules is that there's a motion on the floor, and you had called for a second, and now it seems that you're introducing something else, and you also said something about a recess. So that, to me, those are three
Okay.
items, and so
Okay.
I was
There's a-
just trying to follow what needs to be
That's
done so
fine.
that I can give the advice
Absolutely.
that I need to.
Absolutely. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I have Walter's motion and Tim's second. And then for discussion, I would just ask that one of our council members, out of courtesy to the mayor, would move that there, since the council member Steed's draft resolution was submitted on the dais in opposition to the courtesy I tried to show the council earlier today by not submitting this for your consideration tonight, that you move that this, that the motion be amended to include consideration of two resolutions this evening.
Two resolutions.
My resolution. Yeah, Randy, so we have a motion, we have a second, we're having discussion, and I've asked for modification of the motion so that my draft resolution might also be submitted for the council's consideration. If that motion is, if the amendment is introduced and seconded, then we can vote on that to see if the council wants to give it the time of day or not.
Yes, that's correct. I'd also suggest that you could decide, the council could decide on this motion, and then you could, someone could introduce yours, or you could take a recess, because I heard that you said that you wanted to make copies of something to distribute. You still have all those options. I was just trying to keep the order right. I'm not trying
I
to
do.
influence
I'm
what the
asking
decision is.
for an amendment or a
do that.
secondary motion, yes. Would you give me that courtesy, Mr. Council President?
I will give you that courtesy, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
What, excuse me, what is the,
To amend it to include her
Motion to
resolution.
amend the motion to accept the mayor's draft resolution.
As
As
testimony.
testimony. Thank you.
As discussion?
As discussion, I guess, is a better
okay,
term.
so you have a motion and a second before the council. There is another motion that has been offered then by the council president
President
to,
Giles and seconded by Sue Scott, to accept my draft resolution for the council's.
To amend the previous motion to include this resolution in the discussion also.
the previous motion was to adopt a resolution as proposed by Councilmember Steed. An amendment to include the mayor's motion, unless they are very much the same.
Well, the council hasn't seen it yet, so they can decide that if they choose.
Might I
for its
recommend that
discussion.
you take a recess, distribute it, and allow people to review it then?
They weren't prepared to read it before they voted, and so I don't know how this council wants to do this.
You made the motion, Wayne.
It is. Can I share staff's confusion?
Please.
And that is that the motion put forth by Councilmember Steed was to adopt the resolution as stated. It received a second. Then you requested that your motion be distributed and considered it accepted by the council for review. Is that correct?
That's
Not
correct.
her motion.
For-
What's
for-
confusing me is
for
that
discussion.
Councilmember Scott is saying that is characterizing it as a motion to amend Walter's motion.
No, it's an amendment. It was moved by Wayne to amend Walter's motion to include my distribution of my draft resolution for the council's consideration as would pertain to its vote on the main motion.
I find that confusing. I mean, if you've got a motion to have a resolution, that I don't know how you amend that motion to include a counter resolution or a different resolution.
Let me suggest that this document has some information in it that may be enlightening to the council that they may wish to consider in the resolution as put forward by Councilmember Steed. This information has not been made available to the City Council at the City Supervisor's recommendation today, saying you will not introduce something new that's not posted on the agenda.
Ma'am, I must protest. That was never stated, that I would refuse, or it has been the policy of this council that as resolutions come forward, that they are in the packets.
Correct.
The information that was provided to the council tonight was merely information only, which was an adjunct to the report that I gave.
Correct.
I did not manipulate this agenda, and I certainly did not represent to you that you could not bring it forward if you wanted. I indicated that that had not been placed in the packet. That was not the action that was recommended. I merely cited Robert's rules in response to a council motion as I read it, and has been verified by the city attorney.
Thank you. I fully accept that. You're accurate. However, a council member introduced a resolution on the fly tonight, and I had not distributed mine as that courtesy. Yes, Wayne.
The purpose of that motion to amend Walters is simply to introduce her draft as information that the council may study prior to making the vote. Does that clarify that any? If not, I'll withdraw the motion. I don't want to muddy the waters.
Randy?
May I suggest, if what you're trying to do is simply discuss what the mayor would like the council to see, if you just would, you've got a motion and you have a second, so it's in play. If you just took a recess and requested copies be made, and then reconvene in 10 minutes with an agreement among you that you can introduce that as part of the discussion, then there's not a conflicting motion. The mayor gets to distribute to the council for their consideration prior to the vote on the motion those things that she's feeling she wants to, and you could take that as part of the consideration and then vote on the original motion, yes or no. And I think that that probably gets you where you want to go.
And Wayne's motion included that this would be part of this record, so we want to make sure that that's the case as well.
But if you, what I'm saying is that the problem is it seems that you've got two conflicting and opposing perhaps resolutions. But the easy way to do it is simply take a break and agree that you're going to come back and let the mayor distribute the information and discuss it before you vote.
Can we do this by consensus?
Sure.
Okay, is that all right with everybody?
And I will withdraw my motion to amend Walter's motion.
I'll agree.
Okay, is there general consensus that this draft resolution may be distributed for the council's consideration prior to voting on the motion that has been seconded?
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay. You're willing to read this before you vote?
I wanted to recess it.
Okay, very good. So, sorry, no questions from the audience. We're going to just take a 10-minute recess while this can be copied, and we'll make it available for the public as well. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes.